All right, welcome back. 2 days in a row this time, but quick update on the market. So weakness yesterday, ostensibly on tariff news. Market not going anywhere today. So a little bit down, a couple red candles. I would argue, as I argued yesterday, that Trump did not tweet about all-time highs in the market without a reason. And I think a lot of this back and forth on tariffs is just art of the deal stuff. He is now focused on the market, wants the market to go higher. And so I'd be looking at this buying opportunity as a dip. One of the things I did do today is I've been looking to get more long gold. Remember, we had that interesting gold
Don Durant.
Yeah, a week or so ago. So I used today's weakness to get more into my gold positions. But that's about it. Makes sense. We're way overextended for the market to pause here. But I'm not really worried about the tariff stuff. Jeremy, any thoughts from your angle?
Yeah, I'm just finishing up the paperwork to sign up for joining the BTFD crew, buying some dips here and there.
What crew is that?
Buy the friggin' dip.
Oh, buy the freaking dip.
Looking at a couple things that I use for a litmus on this stuff whenever the tariff stuff gets sensitive. Watch Amazon, really. I mean, a lot of their goods are imported, obviously. And they're dipped down pretty well today. I'm thinking maybe we get a little bit more of a pullback, kind of approaching the 215, 220 area, and we should be in business for looking for some good opportunities.
This is I don't know if you knew this, but this is their Prime Week.
Yeah, I just ordered some stuff today.
An option guy that I follow pointed out a massive short-term option trade betting that they're going to hit all-time highs, so go above 240. Option flow in and of itself doesn't mean anything, but combined with other analysis, it can help shape your opinion. So
the chart does present a possible secondary move to about there. I had a target at 238, a little more conservative, but yeah, pretty much aligned. And I ordered a ton of stuff today on Amazon Prime today. So, and some new bike parts. And
if you have Prime already, is it cheaper or what? No?
Yeah. Well,
it's cheaper even if you have Prime?
I don't know that. Actually, I think I don't think it really matters for the pricing, but you get access to a few more items.
Oh, I see.
In the realm of it. So it's not like it'll be cheaper prices, but it'll be more items available in the Prime Day.
Got it.
From what I understand. I ordered a bunch of stuff, and nonetheless, it was a great opportunity as well.
So before I introduce Ron here, dude, I want to ask you a question, Matt. You've been you seem kind of quiet the last couple of days. We've had 2 podcasts in a row. You usually have a lot to say, a lot of recs. Feels like don't have any recs, so that means you're kind of neutral to bearish
on the market.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the market's extended, so it's moving down to sideways. There's just not a lot going on thematically. I did write about the private prison stocks. Oops.
But so you're basically saying there's just not much to talk about. So it's self-obvious.
Not much to talk about in the markets right now. I mean, both of the private prison stocks came down.
Got it.
That's unfortunate. That was the only real theme I was looking at. The other thing is, on SPACs, this is the Don Jr. SPAC. It's having a rough day today, but it had a great day the past couple. So that's all to be expected. But yeah, I mean, just not a lot really going on, and you wouldn't really expect it. I mean, we've gone a long way very, very quickly.
Okay.
And,
summer
makes sense if we just move sideways for a bit. Most of what I've been doing is selling puts now, because if we do move sideways, I'm just going to collect money.
Got it. Okay, fair enough. All right, so I'm going to make the intro. We got Ron Geffner here from Sadis and Goldberg, founding partner, ex-SEC attorney, really smart guy. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing great, Patrick. How you doing, my friend?
Good, good. So what's up in the legal world these days, sir?
There's a whole lot of things going on. Legal legal's at the doorstep of having to deal with AI. No different than any of the other service firms, auditors, administrators, the brokerage industry, and writing reports and things of that nature. So it's not clear how AI will affect the industry as you look at the marketplace. There's just an article. I don't know if you look on when you do a Google search, they have all these top stories that come on the bottom of the Google search. One of them was about a lawyer who charges over $3,000 an hour.
Right,
You have hourly rates going up, and it seems that many firms are doing very, very well. At the same time, we have technology that theoretically should create enhanced efficiencies.
right,
And will it replace legal? Will it supplement legal? There's a lot of different thought processes on it.
right,
And how much of this is similar in my mind to Y2K? I know AI is here to stay, but does it give you perspective if you're the consumer utilizing it?
So
right,
I write legal documents with AI now. I'll have AI now. I mean, we have a trust counsel. I mean, they write the prospectuses, but I'll have AI write it and just give it to them, and and they touch it up. I just formed a new company. I had AI write. I had AI write my operating agreement. So all of that stuff is interesting. Also wonder, do you, and if you don't, that's fine. Do you have any sense? So I recently filed, and I know you're more on the private side, not on the
Sure.
ETF side, but I recently filed for a bunch of new ETFs that use AI to pick the stocks and the weightings, figuring that this SEC, if they're okay with me filing for a 2x Trump coin, they'll be okay with me filing for AI-based funds. And they weren't. Normally we'll have like 2 pages of comments. We had like 30. So I think, they're not there unwrapping their head around that. Do you have any sense of that and where that may be going?
With regard to like the SEC's use of technology or their perspective on it?
Or the SEC allowing the use of the technology? I mean, you got to figure eventually everyone's going to be using it. They're going to have to allow you to use it, but they're not there yet.
I don't think it's ready for prime time yet. Let's watch. Let's go back a little, Matt. With the operating agreement that you wrote using AI, are you the only owner or are there partners?
I'm the only owner.
So then it could be a crayon with 10 words on it, as long as the bank's willing to accept it. No
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, if it's you,
worked for me. Sorry, go ahead.
but if all of a sudden it's the 4 of us that are starting a business, AI may be helpful to be inclusive of things we haven't thought of. I'll give you an example. One of my partners was using AI to create an index in litigation. And I don't know how long or lengthy indexes normally might be, but it was certainly on average, he expected something in greater brevity. It produced over a 200-page document as an index of all the other documents. So learning to tailor it down, it'll become more and more and more useful. It's not there yet. But now let's say you can use AI for a trust document. And let's say you're coming right out of the gate, or you have an issue. You don't necessarily know who the vendors are, that you may want to call that know their subject matter, that can stand behind and bear liability, because AI isn't going to be the backstop if something goes wrong. So it still requires some human override, intervention, obligation. Same thing like even in crypto. We had something come up recently where a client is trying to follow the dicta of the SEC staff and their new approach on crypto, even though it's clearly not law yet. So there's just a lot. I feel like there's more going on now in the world than I recall as an adult ever going on. And then as a result, because of all the stuff going on, people are hesitant to make a decision. Paralysis by analysis. Or
Yeah.
they're making bad decisions because they're not looking at it from a risk perspective.
Right.
People start writing their own documents. But give you an example, if you're looking to set up a vehicle, a fund, taking third-party money, and this came up recently, and you haven't engaged legal counsel, but you want to engage an auditor, are you smart enough to know whether you should or shouldn't engage an auditor? Now you engage an auditor. Why would the auditor take on the matter knowing that there isn't counsel behind it? Because if something goes wrong,
Right.
the auditor is going to potentially bear greater risk. The fact pattern doesn't support it. So
Right.
these are still very early days. And one of the mistakes I see people often make within private funds, because post 08, you met, and Jeremy's talking about Amazon and Prime Day, which is actually really fascinating that many of us know it's Prime Day, but we're not necessarily sure what Prime Day stands for. Doesn't
Yeah,
change
no idea.
pricing.
I know it's Prime
But
Day.
guess what? It's got us talking about it. So,
Yep.
maybe tomorrow, going forward, July 9th will be Ron Day.
Right.
People won't know what that means, but maybe they'll be talking about me. But the point is, people in the fund sector, ever since 2008 and the internet gaining more and more speed, people at times view the launch of their business as a binary decision. And it's not.
Right.
And
Right.
if you think of things as a binary decision,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be a lawyer, like, so I'm doing a gut renovation project on a house. The reason I work with my electrician is he's not fly by night. He's going to stand behind what he does. And when there's a problem, because there's always a problem, he's a person I can call to fix it. It seems to be part of the consumption of our society thinks of things as a binary decision process, right? There's a website out there that has all the old manuals for how to fix things we buy, because the companies we buy them from no longer support maintaining the manuals online. So our consumption is more of a disposable mentality.
Right. That's a really good point, actually.
I love
Yeah,
service
and
manuals.
that affects our decision on things we don't even realize.
So I'm just two words come to mind.
Yeah.
Value add. So your value add, and then I'm going to use the word consigliore. That's a compliment, right? So
I take it that way.
your value add is as a consigliore is really what you're saying. That's what a real attorney does. The forms and all that BS via AI, that's like bullshit, is what you're saying, kind of.
I wouldn't say they're BS. What I would say is, I think if I went back maybe 15 years ago, I mean, reality is stranger than fiction, as they say. I had a client telling me he was selling the offering documents we drafted on eBay.
Wow.
Now, like first, think about what must go through the person's head.
I love that. That's hilarious, man. That's a good one. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
But this is reality. This is the reality of life. And there's regulatory issues that are specific to the person.
Right.
We talk about specificity. So let's say, you're in LA, Pat, and Jeremy is in Virginia.
Right.
And if you were to say we're launching a vehicle, so we
Right.
have to register as an investment advisor, and you're popping that into AI.
Right.
Is AI going to come back and say, well, where's Jeremy physically sitting? Where's Pat physically sitting? Have you considered state law? Or there's a range of just nuanced questions
Right.
that we won't know. Even if AI were to spit it out there, in many cases, we won't know what to do with it. So give you another example. I had spinal surgery 5 weeks ago, as of yesterday.
Wow.
Oof.
Looking
And-
good.
Thanks. Oh, and the result? Great results. I was literally you come out of it, no pain. Question I asked my surgeon, how many of these do you do a week? 15.
Right. Yeah.
And if you speak to people in the misinformation, I didn't realize, because I never had a back problem before. Once I had a back problem, it was amazing how many people are like, oh yeah, I wake up, my leg is numb. Oh, every couple months I can't get out of bed for 2 weeks, because everybody starts to share, and then you realize all the misinformation that's out there.
Yep.
And if you
Okay,
speak
so
to,
let me just play
Yeah.
devil's advocate here for a sec. Say
Yeah.
Jeremy and me, we start this fund we're talking about, and we're like, well, shit, we have to pay Ron 100 grand. I mean, isn't that how do you get around? How do you get around that, or how do we get around
Oh,
that, or
well,
how do
well,
you
you always
approach
have
that?
to pay a toll.
Yeah.
Right,
As I say to everybody, nothing in life is for free.
right,
Nothing.
yeah, right,
And Matt agrees because I almost saw a smile coming off his face.
I mean,
Well,
my
it must do a little good.
$50,000 legal opinion from the Big Four accounting firm
Yeah.
that we were talking about earlier, when I knew I was right, they knew I was right. My auditor, who I had to give the legal opinion to, knew I was right, but he still needed the legal opinion for his own backup because it was a gray area.
But it
right,
comes back. It comes back also to one other thing I said, and the proposals I read about the use of AI as a lawyer factor this into consideration. You need somebody to backstop the opinion, somebody who bears a
right,
liability,
Exactly.
even though your auditor knows, a Big Four knows, you know, no one knows with 100% certainty. You may be 95%, 99%, but we live in a world where things go wrong.
yeah. So if you're a big boy and you want to play with the big boys, you got to call Ron. Is basically the pitch, right?
Yeah, but it's also Pat, you mentioned it's value. Are you
Right.
getting value? Do you feel like you're being ripped off? So I'm doing this gut reno. I'm
Right.
turning to the people saying, would you do this? How will this look? How will this work? Is it going
Right.
to be riddled with problems? So I try and select people I trust. And I try and select people that I believe understand me and understand my value system.
Right.
So my primary physician, my accountant, it's a function of empathy. It's a function of understanding. It's a function of ethos, right? Do we move at the same speed? Do we communicate in a similar manner? Do I feel understood? Goes back to that.
Right.
Do
It's
I
fine.
respect this person? Like in any relationship, we've met plenty of people. They're just shopping for an answer, and it's like, hey, this is the answer. How much is it going to cost me for you to say this is the answer? Right? 1+1 is 3. Can you write that?
Right.
Right.
It's a function of your value system.
All right.
Like
Yeah.
all these different decisions.
Is it going to matter in litigation? That's the
You're
bottom
pretty
line.
good, Ron. I got to say, I'm convinced already, man. I'm 15 minutes in.
Well, if you look in your inbox, there's an engagement letter.
Ah, there you go.
Pat, you and Jeremy should not start a fund.
No. I would day trade it. Come on now.
Oh my gosh, dude.
No, so and by the way, so then we're also saying this within the legal community when there's been a change in how we conduct business as humans post-COVID. We're not in a 5-day-a-week office. People work from wherever. But there's
right.
some really great things that come with that. Like everything else, it's like good news, bad news. So as the world evolves, we'll see where that goes. And the world is becoming, at least I think it was until about the last 18 to 24 months, more globalized.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So those are like, so the variables that AI, I don't think can tell you that are relevant. If you're going to come up with a strategy, where to market to, how to market, who to distribute to, what common considerations have you given thought to? So we had a client years ago setting up a cannabis fund, and they had a hard line by which to get the documents to certain investors that if they missed, their SOL, which I assume Jeremy, who was throwing around the acronyms, will know what it means, but they're shit out of luck. The money was going to walk. They a third of the way through, they decided to hire a vendor, third-party administrator, really good name in the marketplace. But my concern was to the client, and I was right at the end of the day, was they've never done a cannabis fund. Why do they want one now? How can you rely upon them since they don't have it? It's not even the lack of the knowledge, because you always hire people that might have the knowledge. And as I unfortunately I was right at the 1 yard line, the administrator pulled out because of what they realized they didn't want to be administering a cannabis fund.
Right.
So there's also just having common sense. And when you speak to people that have been in the thick of things, sometimes they've forgotten more things than a person will ever learn.
Right. Yeah.
And that practical experience really pays off. or will fail you.
Experience is always the best
Yeah.
teacher and the most reliable source of, well, anything you do, really, whether you're thinking about it or doing it.
It's the same people that commoditize asset management.
Right. Yeah.
I have a sense of the market. I don't manage my own money. I'd
Right.
rather either have some of our clients do it or wealth managers. That's what they're doing 24/7. I hope.
So Matt, you have any questions on this? Because I want to go into like a side topic here on like the crypto treasury, MicroStrategies. Do you have any sense on those, Ron? Like,
Yeah, go ahead. That's a topic near and dear.
Yeah, so we're the trend I started seeing about 3 months ago was we had several people coming to us that were launching stable coins, and
yeah,
then we're going to take the proceeds from the stable coin to put into a private fund to generate a return to pay a dividend on the stable coin.
yeah, and
That's been one trend.
yeah,
But the biggest trend has been tokenization.
right,
And we're all hearing it. What I can't really, and we've been doing crypto since 2009. We were working with Bill Miller from Legg Mason in connection with his investments early days in Bitcoin. And that was when I had to learn what forking was back in 2009, and it was something other than eating.
right,
The tokenization, what I don't get is where's the marketplace that's going to buy the tokenized assets? You put it on a no, it may come. I think it will come for some assets more easily than others. But in the last several months, we had a group wanting to tokenize real estate assets they own. We're working with another group actually tied to real estate that's going to tokenize outside the United States. It's part and parcel with many conversations these days. And it has been so much more, it has been for the last 2 years. The issues with it from a US perspective is knowing who's buying it, making sure that they abide by all the rules and regulations. So tax, for example, in the United States, common reporting standards. Making sure that they're qualified from a suitability perspective is another.
right.
3, if you're running a private fund or even a public fund, knowing who your investors are and how they might vote versus somebody who's going to take a minority interest and try to upend the fund and the investors.
Good point.
Right. So your first point was like, was it about liquidity? Do you mean like you're afraid if it's going to find a market? Is that what you mean? When is it
Well,
liquidity or more
my
like
concern is I build it and there isn't liquidity yet.
right,
Right. There's no
Because
secondary
then
market
I don't know
yet.
how much people are relying on their business plan.
right, yeah,
Where I see some real solid use cases, for example, in the ETF world. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out how do you get privates in an ETF, where we've got, 15% maximum, but even that doesn't make sense because if you have redemptions, you're going, above 15%. And,
Yeah, they have to rebalance the portfolio.
but you can't because you've got
For privates, yeah.
So I mean, we've been there, done that in one of our SPAC ETFs. We had, we had founder shares that we couldn't sell even if we wanted to. So tokenization, I think, has the potential to help solve that issue.
But Matt, pause there. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So let's say SPAC sponsor shares. They want to know who's holding them, and they're purposely creating an illiquid asset. So for those privately held businesses, and I understand where you're going, I think it won't help those, but it might help more with the thinly traded where there is no market. But then is somebody going to try and create a market when there's a lack of information to share to the person purchasing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you've definitely got some hurdles. And yeah, I wouldn't think it would work for like, SPAC sponsor share because I mean, if we're actually looking into maybe doing a SPAC, I want to know if I have sponsor shares who my sponsors are. So
Ron, let me ask you a question on this, right? So if I am a regular dude and I go out and buy some Bitcoin on some exchange, whatever, do I have any protections? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like if you're buying some tokenized private asset, Star, whatever, whatever Elon's company's called, I can't even think of the name of it. Starlink. Oh, no, what is
SpaceX.
it? SpaceX, duh.
SpaceX.
So SpaceX, so do you have any protections or anything? Is that kind of what you're saying?
So that's one of the harder parts, and I'm going to answer your question more in the macro. It's figuring out the real information from the false information. And unfortunately, the last month, I've received at least one outreach a week with somebody who was defrauded tied to crypto. And one of them was somebody on the West Coast lost over $1 million through, I didn't even see the documentation. I just received the call.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go into the nuances of it, but it was tied to crypto, which theoretically could just as easily be tokenization.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Yeah.
FBI's on it. It's outside the country. There's nothing I can do. If the FBI's on it, nothing within reason without getting on an airplane and really making that my life's mission. That story is playing out over and over and over.
Right.
But there is going to be, and there is, legitimate tokenization. So there then is creating the platform where people can, you know what you're getting. So I think that it's there. It's just you need to be selective if you're an investor. If it's something, and as they always say, if you don't understand what you're investing in, don't invest in it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I think that needs time as well to play out, and it will serve a purpose. But that also presumes there's a demand for the asset being tokenized. Now, SpaceX, big demand.
Yep.
Maybe an apartment building throwing off income where you can vet it and know it's substantiated by people within your community and it's objectively been vetted. That may make sense because you want an income stream. But
Right.
if it's something where you don't know and you can't vet it, you're rolling the dice.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
gotta know what you're buying.
I guess that's the
simple.
answer, huh?
Yeah, which is always the answer. But we also know how many people do not know what they're buying, and there's unfortunately quite a large number of them.
So, all right. So, I'm going to ask you another question. So, what do you think will define, the next 5 years of, regulatory or financial law?
So the interesting part is with the Trump administration's fingerprint on the SEC, what I don't know is the next election cycle and how that president and their administration may or may not have the same drive, the same perspective. Right now on crypto, the SEC, based on everything I've read, is only looking for outright fraud. They've dropped all these cases.
Yeah.
If it's a function that, and the seminal case that we look to is SEC versus H.E.A.T, which is what defines a security. And they're saying that, and the perception is that crypto is not a security. It still leaves a linger. And if it's not a security, is it a commodity? If it's neither security or commodity, what is it? And we go back to why the law is in place. And for many Americans, they view the laws as a pain in the ass. They view it as unnecessary and overdone. If you go back to the Great Depression and people selling snake oil and the advent of the SEC and the 33 Act, Securities Act of 1933 and the Exchange Act of 1934, they're there to protect, they're paternalistic. They are there to protect, while they're there to protect us, in my mind, they're more there to protect the people that don't have the knowledge that we have, that
Right.
don't know the right questions to ask. So it's a great question. And I literally have no clue because it's
Right.
the politics of what's gone on is something new that I had not experienced.
So you bring up an issue that's near and dear to my heart. So I'll ask if you've got an opinion on this. Crypto. Do you think there's a chance the SEC comes out and says crypto is a security?
Well, what is it now, by the way?
I think, by the way, I think
Now
it's less likely than.
Okay.
So and why I ask, so we run a couple of crypto ETFs, and because it's called a commodity,
All
not
right.
only am I regulated by FINRA and the SEC, I'm now regulated by the National Futures Association as well.
All right.
Yes, he's got to worry about being a commodity pool operator, commodity trading advisor.
I'm technically a commodity pool operator, even though I don't touch Bitcoin. All I have is swaps on Bitcoin ETFs, but that makes me a commodity pool operator. And, I'm dealing with an NFA audit now where I've got to, answer commodity pool operator questions that don't make a heck of a lot of sense for a guy running an ETF. So it'd be much easier for me if crypto was a security and I went back to only being regulated by FINRA and the
Right.
SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to be perceived, even though the law, from what I can tell and everything I've read, and it evolves fairly quickly, what the law is versus the SEC's position on what the law is are two different things. The SEC's position is it doesn't seem to be that they're prosecuting violations of securities laws solely on the basis that a crypto is a security and the person dealing with it is not abiding by those laws. Now, if you involve fraud, yeah, they hopefully will be knocking on your door, provided they can find you. But it's still very, very early days, and there's this position we've taken for the SEC for the United States to stay competitive. We need to look at crypto as a non-security. And while we represent a lot of crypto managers, in my personal mindset, I'm not really sure where I fall on it. I personally think it's a security based on the H.E.A.T test. Now, where it may go, whether there's an independent self-regulatory organization that's created to govern crypto, I'd be good with that. I just want accountability because I'm the person getting the calls from like widows and orphans. And I mean, really am. There was somebody who barely spoke English in the United States who could not even scan and send me the document that she signed where she lost her life savings of $300,000. Now, I'm filling in a lot of gaps to the data, but based on my calls, and I'm trying to help this person, not that I'm looking for applaud without charge. So I'm not trying to monetize it either. So I'm very well intended. And the document this person signed is crap. Like, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. There's no jurisdiction that it's governed by. The mechanics are all missing. People don't know. So I'd rather those people be protected.
So are you, I just want to clarify something. So
Yeah.
are you saying that you said like the SEC or the FBI, DOJ, whoever, they can do stuff, but you're saying like a private, like a individual defendant or like, I guess a defendant can't do much with even with an
It's not that
attorney,
they can or can't do. First, it's a resource question too.
right?
For somebody who loses a couple $100,000 and that's all their life savings, they can go to legal aid,
Right.
but they may or may not be getting somebody who's best suited to serve them. So the economics don't make sense.
Right.
A lawsuit for 50 grand, 70 grand, you're going to a local practitioner probably who's going to charge you at a lower hourly rate.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
whether
So
that
it's
person has
tough.
requisite knowledge. So with crypto,
Got it.
I mean, you guys read headlines. It's crypto is something that continues to evolve.
So is this then, what would, you don't, we're going to talk about IBIT. Let's talk about an IBIT ETF or something like that. So are there differences there? I mean, so you're kind of better off buying an ETF then, therefore, than buying crypto per se, if you could, right? Because at least you have some legal framework of some sort. I
You're
don't
making
know.
certain assumptions, but let's do this.
I always do that, by the way.
Crypto, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's why God invented lawyers. So if you don't understand the asset class, whether it's crypto or anything else,
Right.
you have a general sense that you want to invest or have exposure to the asset class,
Yeah.
find an intermediary or professional that can help you, and you obviously compensate them, and you possibly invest through their product.
Pat, give me a call after this.
Yeah. That's what an ETF issuer does, man.
Well, no, I don't know if I'm just saying, he sounds like if, it would be a real reason to own an ETF versus just going out and buying.
But it is.
crypto.
If you don't understand crypto, but you think
Right.
crypto in general is going to rise, Given it, let's take it out of crypto.
I mean,
Let's
I
go.
don't know.
Let's put on our. I don't even know what clothes we were wearing back then, but in the early 2000s,
Tough skins.
the advent of the internet.
70.
Pat, did you invest in MySpace?
Yeah,
I'm
I
serious.
was on MySpace.
All right.
It's
So my
this-
point is, you have this internet bubble going on, and there's hundreds of internet stocks, if not thousands. I have no clue. I don't know. I have no idea the size of the universe. Most of those are gone.
Right.
There's a few that survived. Is a random selection? Possibly, but where there are some managers that get it better and better because that was their focus.
Right.
Kathy at ARC, like her experience on the technology side. What is it worth? She'll know more possibly than an armchair quarterback who's looking at it at night when they're done with their day job.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So I believe, which goes back to even what I do in my selling proposition, you hire experts. Stop commoditizing people and hire people that you believe are best suited for you. Whether it's asset management, law, medical, there's a value in that. You know, there's also the saying, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
Right.
You
Got
do
it.
get to some degree what you pay for.
Got it. Okay. You don't have to sell me on that. I believe you.
No,
So-
but I mean, but it reinforces what you're all doing here as well.
Oh, that's
Right.
true.
And Pat, to answer your question, there are reasons why, also you'd buy like IBIT over setting up an account at like a Coinbase and buying crypto directly. I mean, it's comfort level. So, one of my traders is, early 30s, been trading crypto, since he was in college. And he's very comfortable on exchanges. I mean, he's my ETF trader. I don't think he's ever owned an ETF in his life. All of his money is in individual cryptos. Me, I'm 56. I'm, and I'm an options guy. So, I'm buying, options on my crypto ETFs or buying options on IBIT or, something like that. Cause that's where my comfort level is.
Right. No. I mean, yeah, of course.
And me, I've traded crypto until I had to do my taxes on it, and it was a pain in the butt. So I quit trading crypto. I just trade related stuff. It's much easier to deal with. Import documents, send.
And instead I invested in Zero Hash, which provides infrastructure in the crypto space.
There you
All
go.
right. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's going back to what Matt's saying. It's also what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But we are a subset of the general population. And some people develop comfort at it too easily, only to have made a bad decision. And many other people are not comfortable, but they're following the crowd.
Right. So I don't remember if this was before we were on air or after we started, but you mentioned the thing about like stablecoin, staking, all that. Any thoughts on that? Like the yield bearing crypto strategies, like the legalities and the future of that stuff?
I'm still trying to figure out the staking stuff. Good question.
Yeah, no, we've set up staking funds. They've been hit or miss for some of our clients. The stablecoin, I feel like it's a more recent play, and it's early days, and there are potential concerns from a securities standpoint. I mean,
Right.
and by the way, this isn't the first time the administration or the SEC has pivoted on different things, and only because Matt mentioned his age, and I'm 59, Matt. So I remember there was a period of time where the SEC was, you have to register as an advisor. Then, no, you don't have to register as an advisor. Then you have to register as an advisor, but we're only taking managers with this amount of AUM. And it was risk on, risk off, risk on. Things do happen where it's very hard if you're in the business of asset management, when it's volatile, to make an intelligent or informed decision due to this volatility, but that's also part of the arbitrage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let me ask you this question. So do you think there's a difference between, let's say, JP Morgan getting involved in this and let's say, Pat Neville Inc. getting involved in, stable coins or, what do you make of that?
The answer I would say,
That
Thanks for the
That's
insulation.
an obvious one. I couldn't think of a closer one,
I would say yes. First of all, bad case law is made by the government going after smaller people who cannot defend themselves properly. They're less apt to go full force on JP Morgan unless there's some major fraud and a major failure to supervise. They
Right.
have other things to be worried about. It's so, and JP Morgan's more likely, and it's not an absolute, but more likely to comply with law. And they'll have a battery of lawyers internally that are sometimes larger than most of the law firms that they use.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So JP Morgan's a good thing if they're involved. Yeah.
It means in my mind, it's more mainstream.
Right.
Once it's more mainstream, it's sort of hard to get the horse back in the barn. as
Got
they
it.
say.
I've got
Got it.
back to AI again. I got a question that was kind of phoned in from a friend. I think it's a pretty good one. So he says, given the rapid movement we are seeing in AI within the finance sector, what new regulations seem first coming for like robo-advisor firms and non-accredited persons to place allocation with these firms? Kind of a neat one. That leaves a lot of open ends though.
It is, but it's also going to evolve. Bigger things I've seen is the use of AI in your descriptor or your intention on applying it to your technology as it relates to asset management and not implementing it the way you're advertising it.
Okay. So being very specific with how it's implicated into
Yeah,
the
there's been
system.
people who claim to use it and it's not really being used in the way that they held out to the public.
Right. I have read some feedback about that exact thing. People making claims that they're using AI for this or that and being completely just random. I mean, they're not even producing a record of even looking at some of the things they were allegedly researching with it.
We also had it with lawyers with AI. There were some lawyers that submitted briefs using AI, and in certain cases, certain actions, some of the cases AI spit up, it manufactured the cases.
I
It
read that.
Oh, wow.
That's great. I thought that was great, by the way, actually.
So
Yeah.
so for citation, you got to be careful and do your own diligence to verify the citation.
Yeah.
We were talking about that earlier,
Yeah.
by the way, Ron. So, last question for me here, by the way. So this is kind of a general question. Where's the biggest legal blind spot, do you think? For, this is for ETFs sponsors, but, where's the biggest legal blind spot?
Well, we'll talk about asset managers since I think that's
Asset managers, yeah.
the focus.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of blind spots. First and foremost, which sounds basic and self-promotional, but it's really not intended to be because it is often a problem, are you working with the right people? Are they with it are you using people that prioritize your needs? A common complaint I hear within law from clients, not about us, but prior experience, was that their lawyers just didn't listen to the ask. Are you trying to rush each of your relationships with your auditor, your lawyer, your administrator? Because garbage in, garbage out. Sometimes it takes time where you need to communicate thoughtfully. The mistakes people often make, your biggest risks are not the government. It's not the SEC or the NFA. Your biggest risk are your employees and your partners. Do you have well-written agreements? Not like Matt's single owner operating agreement that AI drafted, because you didn't need anything more than that, quite frankly.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that part I get. But all of a sudden, example there, because I feel like these parables are worthwhile. I had a really close friend, great guy. He partners up with another guy that raised money to seed. They're a year into it and they were 50-50. They decided to bring a third friend in from a prior job, give him 10%. So they go 45, 45, 10. A month later, one partner and the 10% guy walk in and fire the other partner as a majority. So would he have been better to have thought through the different dynamic now caused by the different, the addition of a third person? So your biggest risk or employees, and are you supervising these employees, and how can you supervise them? Especially if we, look at COVID and what's gone on and people not working in the same offices now. Yeah, we use technology, but technology has its limitations. from a supervisory standpoint. Hence why these rules and regulations about using your phone or all these other social media platforms to communicate if you're a regulated party. It goes back to supervising. And then it's your investors. Parable there. People wouldn't think through these things, and AI won't tell you this. We had a client 15 years ago, calls me up. They had a successful launch. They're upset. What happened? An investor of theirs who they gave the original marketing piece to before they launched pulls it out, dusts it off, and says, you said in the event of a drawdown, you're going to do X. You didn't do X. If you don't give us our money back, we're going to sue you.
Right.
Now, there were ways that they could have provided the same information, but protected their future by saying, by way of example, information subject to change is only effective today. All these different qualifications. So part of it is when you're going through the situation, we're talking about blind spots. You don't know your blind spots. I don't know my blind spots. So you surround yourself with people that you trust, that understand whatever it is you're doing, the subject matter expertise, that help you find your blind spots.
Right.
You know, an ounce of medicine, you know, is worth the prevention.
Right.
Because once you have a problem in our industry, that might be the end of your problem because you may not survive that problem. We're seeing
Right.
it in valuation of portfolios of thinly traded assets or level 3 assets. We're seeing it with regard to how insider information is interpreted. If you're purchasing a pipe and then you sell the position short elsewhere, there are a lot of nuances. If you're an activist, if you have multiple funds and you're allocating among the funds to balance them and you're well intended, but that might be a principal transaction.
Right. Got it. All right. So I got one more, and then you guys can roll.
Okay.
So we send out a lot of marketing material, but we generally have to add like about a 15-page disclaimer at the bottom of everything we send out.
I'm sure that's
right?
not exaggerated, but go on.
Wait, Pat, not generally, Pat.
No, we always. Well, no, it
Yeah.
starts. It depends. It's either 4 to 15 pages. I just took the
By
average
By the way,
of 13.
I have a newfound respect for Matt because Matt is like your censor. He's like,
Yeah.
no, Pat, let me reel you in.
I'm just staying quiet. I'm the mushroom.
I don't even have a point. I thought it was just worth bringing up. I thought it was funny.
No,
All right.
yeah.
So yeah, but we do that. We do that, by the way. We have a disclaimer.
No, but
Pat, I'm sure Ron knows that we do that.
No,
I
but
know-
here's
I
the
know-
funny
I know
thing,
you
though.
guys do it,
Like
and
our
this is just for
disclaimer,
entertainment.
we
I
get in
that
trouble
part.
if we did italics like the 4th line versus the 7th line, and like this word is not bold, and so we have a whole team that
Yeah, so with-
of disclaimer
with-
police over here at
Well,
Tuttle
with
Capital
registered,
Management. By the way,
with registered products, there are very specific rules that deal with not only the substance of what you're putting up, but the font size and all these other details.
Right.
With it, but
Telling Ron anything he doesn't already.
All right.
should be everything's, but it is specific to the strategy, specific to the manager, financial
Right.
condition of the manager. If the
Right.
manager is not solvent, there's a disclosure obligation there. So
All right.
he's giving you a way of example of how this stuff gets nuanced
Right.
to try and create as an objective playing field of disclosure as one can have. Right? It's all about it's paternalistic.
No, I know.
Public.
I know. I don't know. Anyway,
They call that boilerplate, don't they?
Well, the people that aren't in the know.
it's not boilerplate. That's what I'm saying, Jay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
always like it's never the same. It's always like
No,
whatever.
there's a lot that gets used over and over, so to speak.
Right.
But it gets nuanced depending on the strategy, depending on a range of other variables.
Right.
Climate
Exactly.
history.
Exactly.
So it's flexible boilerplate. Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
All right. Anything
I'll
else?
come- I'll
Anybody?
come by- before I speak to you again, I'll come
Oh yeah.
up
Where
with
can we
one
find you,
for
Ron? By
Yeah.
the way, let's
So
pull up his webpage.
So I'm at Sadis and Goldberg. My email, well, you can do sadis.com. That'll work too.
Oh, there we
There
go.
you go.
Yeah, I found you
Look
there.
at this.
Found your profile on there.
Like the
Yeah.
website.
Are you in one of those cars right there, Ron? Because I think you're speeding. I think you're going to need an attorney yourself,
First of all,
bro.
I will confess that I do enjoy speeding.
All
A
right.
spirited driver, man. We must unite. I was
Yeah.
talking to Pat about that yesterday. Used to hit those canyon
Hey, there
roads
he
over
is.
Malibu.
By the way, as you're pulling it up, Matt, I was worried that I'm wearing the same sport coat. So thankfully I'm not.
There you go.
Right. Well, you are the
But-
best looking one over there at Sadis, by the way. I can already
You're
see
very,
that.
very kind. Well, I enjoy fashion. Don't hold it
All
against me.
right. All right. All right.
Wouldn't dream.
Sadis and Goldberg. Ron
Exactly.
Geffner, everybody.
I appreciate your time. I'm glad to know they have disclaimers on all the marketing material that you have.
Right.
Good conduit for people who don't know how to purchase commodities, even though you don't want it to be a commodity swap on Bitcoin
Yeah.
or crypto or any other asset. So I appreciate our time today.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I
guys.
actually really did enjoy it.
Thank
And,
you.
We did too. Thanks for coming.
everyone
So
out
what
there.
is jacket? What jacket are you wearing today, Ron? I can't really see.
Today is a green one where and then I have a short sleeve Hugo Boss shirt on, but this one
Oh
has
my God.
a peak lapel on it, so it's curved.
Dude.
Put in a tux.
Amazing. Wow.
Gotta have some fun.
Sweet.
And
All
everyone
right,
out
see
there,
you guys.
thanks for attending our audit.